On today's episode of Useless Thoughts, I want to look at 3 situations in everyday life that give me anxiety. I try to be calm and laid back in most things in life, but these 3 situations are some that always cause me anxiety every time that they come up. Thank you for listening, and subscribe to this podcast if you'd like. Drop the small talk, and let's do this.
Sitting on top of the world, I don't know if you heard. I'm living it up, yeah, I ain't gonna stop, and I can't hear a word. Good vibes up in the air, and I got plenty to share. So come pick it up, there's tons to be got, and I'm spreading it everywhere. So go a little up and let it run amok. I'm telling your friends it's time to let the good times roll.
This is the Useless Thoughts Podcast, a place where no thought is too random and no topic is too pointless. Let's have some real conversation. Welcome to the 5th episode of Useless Thoughts. This is Season 1, Episode 5, and I thank you for listening. Hope you've enjoyed the first 4 episodes, and think you will enjoy this one as well if you've enjoyed the first 4. Just some house cleaning here at the beginning. First, remind you of our email address, uselessthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. Send me anything you can there, suggestions, comments, complaints, feedback. I really do like feedback. I try to take it into consideration and know that I don't really know what I'm doing. So let me know what you think, and I will take it from there. Also, I will mention, I say in the beginning to subscribe if you'd like. But if you do like the show and do listen to it, I would ask that you subscribe via your podcast platform, you rate it and review it if that's an option. That does help it to grow in popularity somehow. I don't really know how. I'm just kind of repeating what I've read rather than having to just share it on my Facebook or Twitter or something like that. That can help just some random person find it, which we'd like. We would like to increase the listeners, obviously. So if you can, subscribe, rate, and review it, and then that would help us out. On to the episode. I have done some self-evaluation and realized that I did a little too much complaining in the first few shows. I don't want this just to be a venting podcast where I just complain about everything that I think is wrong and how I think it needs to be made right. So that this show is going to be, or this episode is going to be a little bit different than that. So as I mentioned, this is going to be a episode about things that give me anxiety or just cause me to get anxious. I'm normally a very laid-back person, calm, and just kind of go with the flow, as they say, and don't get too worked up about things. And that's sometimes a good quality, sometimes a bad quality, but that's typically how my demeanor and personality is. But the 3 situations that I'll talk about today actually do cause me to get worked up, to get my without testing it, it feels like it gets my blood pressure up and just causes me to get really nervous. But the first scenario, and if you have ever operated a car or owned a car or anything like that, you're probably familiar with this one. And that is going to get your oil changed. And spare me all the comments about how I'm not a handyman or something and can't change my own oil. I'll accept that. I don't change my own oil. I pay for it to be done. So, if you want to make fun of me for that, then so be it. But anyways, I do go and get my oil changed. And I'm not going to say where or anything like that, but if you've done it, first of all, right off the bat, it's a tough situation because you pull into the parking lot and you don't exactly know where to go. So you just kind of sit there stalled out. You can't pull into a parking spot like you would anywhere else. Here you got to wait to be told where to drive your car to. So you're stuck there. Hopefully you're not too close to the street and holding up traffic out in the street. Then you got to wait on someone to come out there and ask what you're there for. And you hope that just saying oil change, they'll understand what you mean. Then they got to tell you which bay to drive under, which garage door to drive through. And yeah, that's easy enough. But then, you got to make sure that you're not turning the tires too much because you have that little hole in the ground to where they can access the bottom of your car. So you got to make sure to position your wheels perfectly over that. So you're having to drive. You actually put 2 hands on the wheel for the first time in several days, just to try to make sure that you drive perfectly straight to get to where you're supposed to. So if you're able to navigate the stress of all of that, now comes the moment of truth of when they ask you to pop the hood. Now, popping the hood is something that if you've had a car for any amount of time, you've done it several times for various reasons, not the least of which is the last time that you got your oil changed. But there's something about that time when you get your oil changed and they tell you, can you pop the hood for me? That all of a sudden, that button to push to open the hood, that may as well be in the trunk of your car because you have no idea where it is. You start pressing the power on for the radio, you start popping the trunk, you pop the gas tank open, you press every single button in there except the one that pops the hood. And meanwhile, the person that's waiting on you is just staring at you like, how is this person allowed to have a driver's license? So after that, after you've settled yourself down and finally get the hood popped open, you can relax for a little bit. You can look at your phone, you can read a magazine, you can stare and wonder, listen to the sounds of the oil pumping through those machines and wonder why it's so complicated and why you couldn't do this yourself. Whatever you want to do at this time. This is your time to try to relax a little more. But then comes another moment of truth, and that's when they start barking all these instructions to you. All right, crank the car up, turn your brights on, put the left blinker on, put the right blinker on, tap your horn, tap the brakes, all these different things. And every single one, they're doing it rapid fire. You've got all these noises in there, and you have no idea what they're asking. You forget which way is left and right. They tell you to tap the horn, and you end up accidentally pressing it too hard. You're blaring your horn in the middle so no one else in the garage can hear their instructions that's being shouted at them. So you have this mass chaos of not knowing what you're doing and hoping that you're getting it right. Meanwhile, here they come with the air filter holding it up to you and saying, hey, what do you think of this? This looks a little dirty. Do you want to replace it? You have no idea. So you just say, no, I'll do it next time, which you've said for the last 6 years. Then they come holding the dipstick up for the oil up to you saying, hey, here's what we did. Here looks full. It doesn't look any different to you, so you just say, sure, let's go with it. They hand you the thing to sign, and all this to say you are ready to get out of there. You are giving every answer to them that will allow you to get out of this stress-filled garage as quickly as possible. Did I over-dramatize that? Maybe. But I think everyone listening to this knows exactly what I'm talking about. That's anxiety situation number 1, going to get your oil changed. The second situation, something that is maybe a little more obscure, but not quite. So when you go to a game or a concert or any type of event like that where you are buying a seat for a specific location, or you're buying a specific seat with your ticket. And so if you're going with somebody else, you may buy 2 tickets. But if you're going with a big group, you may want 6 tickets or whatnot. But the bigger the event, it's harder to find tickets with a bigger group. If you wanted to get 10 seats together, for example, at a playoff game in the NFL or NBA or MLB, it's going to be hard to get 10 seats together for that. So you and your friends may decide, well, we'll just get 5 pairs of 2. And then we're going to get there and look around to see, well, which one of these groups of 5, which one of these pairs has empty seats around them when they're there. Because, some people don't show up. Some people stand and watch the games, things like that. So there's typically going to be somebody that has some empty seats around them. And so then what you decide as a group is, well, we're going to, we'll just not sit in our seats and we'll go sit in those empty seats, and that way we'll sit together. I'm here to tell you there are not many situations in life that cause me more anxiety than sitting in the wrong seat in these scenarios and waiting for the person to come up and say, hey, Is this your seat? My ticket says that I'm in row 37, seat 12. And I can just, the whole time I'm sitting there watching the game in the wrong seat, I am just on edge, waiting on that person to tap me on the shoulder and tell me that I'm sitting in the wrong seat. 99% of the time when that happens, all they do is just say, hey, I think this is my seat. You get up, and no harm, no foul. So really, that shouldn't be that big of a deal. And I don't truly know why it bothers me so much. But I make every effort to make sure that I have a reserved seat and that I sit in that reserved seat. If my entire group bought tickets and they're all in a section halfway across the stadium and I have one ticket by myself, I would prefer to sit in my one ticket by myself, knowing that if someone comes up to my seat and says, hey, I think you're in the wrong seat, I have a ticket that I am ready to flash at them, and they can tell me nothing from that point forward because I am sitting in my seat. So am I crazy? These two situations so far, getting the oil changed and sitting in the wrong seat just waiting on someone to tell you that that's their seat. Am I crazy for getting anxiety over these two situations? Let me know. uselesssaltspodcast@gmail.com. Friends, we take a quick break from today's episode to bring to you a message from a new sponsor of ours. Here at the Useless Salts Podcast headquarters, we've been blessed to be inundated with numerous requests to sponsor the show, and we're so blessed to have that opportunity, and we have a new sponsor of today's episode. It's so rare for one podcast to have a new sponsor each episode, and we're just in a great situation to have these. This show is brought to you by air pumps that take credit cards. Now, hear me out. If you drive a car, there's been times where your tire pressure has gotten low. Maybe you have a car that has a monitor on your dashboard that tells you when the pressure's low, or maybe you have one of the gauges that you check it yourself and you can figure out that it's low there, or you just do the eye test and can tell it's running a little low. Regardless, we all have those times where we realize that we need some air in our tires. And we are blessed in 2019 that there are a lot of places where we can do that. Typically, gas stations are going to have one that you can use. But that's where the problem comes in. If you've gone to one of these, you probably already know the problem that I'm talking about. And that problem is that most of these air pumps only take quarters. Now, that'd be fine. Okay, maybe it's just 25 cents, 50 cents, and I can scrounge up a couple of quarters and that'll work. Maybe that 45 seconds of time that it gives me to put air in my tires will be sufficient. But no, they're like $1.25, $1.50. Who in their right mind is walking around these days with 6 quarters that they can spare for that? And goodness, if you need all 4 tires to have air put in them, and you use 6 quarters, and if it needs a lot of air and about halfway through you've only done 2 tires, the timer runs out. Classic. So now you got to do it again. So do you think any of us are walking around with 12 quarters that we can use to put air in our tires? So then you maybe if you're lucky and you do have $3 bills that you can take in there, then the cashier hates you because she only had 12 quarters and that was supposed to be all of her quarters for that day, and you've wiped her out, and now the next person that needs them is going to be out of luck. How do we solve this? Air pumps or air, I keep saying air pumps, and to be honest, I don't know if that's the right phrase, but you know what I'm talking about. The machines that pump out air for us to put into our tires. I have found one that takes a credit card, and it has been such a blessing in my life. Air pumps that have credit card acceptance on them are some of the greatest gifts that we have in the convenience store gas station industry. And we need to be thankful for them, and we are thankful to them for sponsoring today's show. Shout out to you, air pumps that take credit cards. We couldn't do this without you, and we appreciate your service. The third and final everyday situation that gives me anxiety is a short one that I have noticed recently that I thought was funny when it happened. I get my hair cut at a place that allows you to check in online. This is convenient because I get to go ahead and get my name on the list before I leave work, and then by the time I get there, I'm already on the waiting list and don't have to do anything once I arrive. But the interesting thing is that this place gives preference to those that do check in online. And so there's been a time recently where I checked in online. I actually did this on my lunch break and did the check-in online while I was still at the office. Went to the place, and there was 7 people in the waiting room, all with their names already on the list. And there's a little indicator on the screen that shows if you checked in online or if you just did a walk-in without checking in. And all 7 of the people in there were walk-ins and had not done the online check-in. So I walk in, standing room only, nowhere to sit. That every hairdresser in the place has a client already with them, and the second that someone gets free and the person is done and the first name is called and they call my name. And you want to talk about a pressure-packed situation is you walk into a barber shop on your lunch break wanting to get your hair cut when everyone else is also on their lunch break trying to get it done as quick as possible, and you just jump to the front of the line of 7 people that had been waiting longer than you had. That You have never felt daggers on you like the eyes as every pair stares at you as you go back there. And you don't get a break either because you think, oh, well, I'm going to the back. Now their eyes are off me. No, it's all out there in the open. They can still see you from the waiting room, and they're just staring, wondering how they could have such rage at one individual as you sit there happily getting your hair cut while they get to just sit there and wait even longer. So, maybe a minor thing, and maybe I'm overblowing it, but that is situation number 3 that has caused me anxiety in my life. Folks, looking back at this episode, I did enjoy this. I did also say I wouldn't complain, and I think in the sponsorship segment I did get a little complaint in there, so I will apologize for that and work on that in the future. Send me your suggestions, things that you notice in your everyday life that cause your anxiety to rise and cause you to get nervous for something that's really just an everyday occurrence that happens to anyone on any given day. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you will continue to subscribe and listen to the rest of this season 1 as we continue to put out content. I want to leave you with one piece of advice for this week. One time this week, wake up early and go outside to enjoy the morning. It's that time of the year when the weather is starting to change a little bit. Not much, but enough to where it feels a little cool in the mornings. And one morning, wake up earlier than you would otherwise. And don't check your phone like most of us do in the morning. Don't turn the TV on. Don't turn the radio or a podcast or music on. Just go outside and look at the sky, look at the trees, listen to the quiet of the morning. Enjoy the peace that comes with the early morning and its sunrise, and maybe meditate and try to get a good day started off that way. And let's all together see if we can do that and get our day started well. Remind you, as we always do, be kind to everyone, and let's make the world a better place.